Microsoft has started rolling out Dolby Vision gaming on the Xbox Series X for a select group of its early beta testers, indicating that you could soon be enjoying Dolby Vision games on your Xbox Series X. Will this news give an advantage to LG OLEDs over Sony OLEDs? Let's talk about this. Hello everyone, Vicentio from HDTV Test here. A Twitter follower alerted me this morning to the fact that Microsoft has started activating Dolby Vision gaming on the Xbox for Xbox insiders on the Alpha Ring. So this new development is confirmed by German website xboxdynasty.de as well. And the games that have shown Dolby Vision notifications are Sniper Elite 4, Marvel's Avengers, Borderlands 3, and also the Halo Master Chief Collection games. So this will be good news for those of you who have been waiting to play games in Dolby Vision on the Xbox Series X. Now the Sony PS5 doesn't support Dolby Vision either for physical media or for games. And I need to stress that the Dolby Vision implementation on the Xbox Series X is player-led, not TV-led. That's the reason that the Dolby Vision output from the console is only limited to these games and also to the internal apps such as Netflix and Disney+. The 4K Blu-ray player drive on the Xbox Series X won't be supporting Dolby Vision because the console is not capable of sending TV-led Dolby Vision output. So how can Dolby Vision improve your gaming experience? Based on my analysis of Dolby Vision on films and movies, what I found was that Dolby Vision, in terms of the dynamic metadata, allows for a more accurate reproduction of the creative intent because these dynamic metadata will tell the display how to dynamically adjust the tone curve on a frame-by-frame or even scene-by-scene basis to allow for optimal reproduction of the artistic intent rather than just using a single tone curve across the entire movie or film based on static HDR10 metadata, and hopefully this benefit will translate across to games as well. Now the thing most people don't realize is that when playing games, most consoles on the market don't actually send out any metadata to inform the display how to adjust the tone curve. So for example, from Ultra HD Blu-rays, we are familiar with Max CLL, which is maximum content light level, Max FALL, which is maximum frame average light level, and also even mastering display luminance or Max MDL. But these metadata are actually not sent out from consoles when you are actually playing a game, which is why HDIG is so powerful because, let's say LG TVs, when they receive an HDR signal that doesn't contain any metadata such as those received from the Xbox Series X or the PS5 or the PS4 Pro, what the TV will do is to adopt a tone curve that resolves up to 4000 nits. So you will have a tone curve that follows the PQ EOTF tracking fairly closely, maybe up to 100-200 nits before it starts rolling off to try and resolve specular highlight detail up to 4000 nits. But if a game doesn't actually contain specular highlight detail or bright objects that go all the way up to 4000 nits, then you will be depressing the average picture level and also the brightness of these specular highlights too much because the TV is assuming there is 4000 nits in the content, but the actual content doesn't have 4000 nits. So this will lead to a subpar HDR experience. This is why HDIG is so powerful because HDIG, as you may or may not be aware, is a concerted effort by console manufacturers and display manufacturers and also game developers to come together to develop a system to let you send out a tone-mapped version directly from the game and console itself to the display. So from that point of view, I firmly believe that an in-game tone mapping from the side of the console or your PC is the most accurate way to enjoy HDR games at the moment because the consoles do not send out metadata to the displays, including TVs. And Dolby Vision can bring a benefit from that point of view because we know that the Xbox Series X will be using player-led Dolby Vision or what is known as low latency Dolby Vision. What this means is that the Dolby Vision mapping will happen on the console itself. So what the console will be doing is to read the EDIT from the display, and then depending on the data that is embedded within the EDIT, for example, the maximum peak brightness of the display and also the coordinates of the color gamut, then the game can begin to tone map on a frame by frame or scene by scene basis depending on the dynamic metadata that has been implemented inside the game. So in theory, this should allow for a more accurate reproduction of the artistic intent from the point of view of the game developers. But I think, when it comes to TVs on the market that can actually work with Dolby Vision games, I think you have to rule out Samsung straight away, because no Samsung TVs on the market support Dolby Vision. And between the LG OLEDs and also the Sony OLEDs, I think the LG OLEDs have an advantage over the Sony OLEDs, especially when playing 4K 120 frames per second games in Dolby Vision. This is because on Sony's latest HDMI 2.1 televisions, including the A90J Master Series OLED, Dolby Vision support is mutually exclusive to 4K 120Hz support. Let me explain what this means. On these Sony TVs with HDMI 2.1 support, you actually get two HDMI 2.1 ports, namely on HDMI 3 and HDMI 4. Now, on these ports, you need to manually select to allow 4K 120Hz or Dolby Vision support. They are mutually exclusive. If you selected the enhanced HDMI video signal option that gives you 4K 120Hz support, you will lose Dolby Vision support. And this will mean that you cannot play a 4K 120Hz game in Dolby Vision on these Sony televisions, whereas you can do so on the LG OLEDs, such as the LG C9, the C10 or CX, the C1, and also the G1. This is because LG has developed its SoC in-house, and this is the reason why they are able to implement 4 HDMI 2.1 ports, and this is the reason why they are able to support 4K 120 frames per second with Dolby Vision support, whereas Sony uses a third-party SoC from MediaTek to attain its HDMI 2.1 functionality. So from that point of view, the MediaTek MT5895 chipset that has been implemented on Sony's HDMI 2.1 televisions, including the A90J Master Series OLED and also last year's XH90 or X900H LED LCD television, they can only support either 4K 120Hz without Dolby Vision or Dolby Vision but capped to a maximum of 4K 60Hz. So that is the limitation that you have to understand from the point of view of these Sony HDMI 2.1 televisions this year. Maybe that will change next year as MediaTek improves their SoC. And then, Sony can buy it and implement on their 2022 televisions. But as of right now, I think the advantage lies with LG OLEDs. So for gamers, I think the LG OLEDs are still going to be the best bet. And I think another thing worth talking about is 4K 60Hz and also 4K 120Hz from the point of view of the Xbox Series X. So some of you will be asking, what's wrong with just playing on a Sony OLED with 4K 60Hz in Dolby Vision? I think, if I don't really miss the higher frame rates, then it shouldn't be a problem. Now, the thing is, so far, for HDR10, what we know is that the Xbox Series X will be limiting its 4K 60Hz video output to only using the HDMI 2.0 pipeline, which means that if you cap the resolution output from the Xbox Series X to 4K UHD 60Hz, what this means is that your total HDMI bandwidth that is available is only 18 gigabits per second, which is the maximum limit of HDMI 2.0. The Xbox Series X will only start using the FRL HDMI 2.1 pipeline when 4K UHD 120Hz is selected, which allows for up to 40 gigabits per second, more than double that of HDMI 2.0 TMDS. So that is another thing that you have to bear in mind when you are actually deciding between 4K 120Hz and also 4K 60Hz from the Xbox Series X. And obviously with larger bandwidth, you can allow for higher frame rates and superior chroma resolution and less chroma subsampling than HDMI 2.0 bandwidth of 18 gigabits per second. So I hope you are as excited as I am about the potential arrival of Dolby Vision gaming on the Xbox Series X, and I can't wait to get my hands on some Dolby Vision games to assess their benefits over static HDR10 games, and whether there will be any additional side effects introduced, such as increased latency. For more videos on the Xbox Series X, please click here for our playlist, and I will see you in the next video.